Hello Internet, and welcome to the Collective Arcana. We are a channel all about tabletop gaming, and today we're going to continue our series on the Pathfinder Second Edition classes with the Rogue. Hey everybody, just a quick interjection here before we get going. At the time of this recording, we are about 20 subs away from 1,000, which is a pretty big deal for the channel. So if you could, take a minute. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit subscribe. And don't forget to like as well. Both of those really help the channel out a whole lot, and we really appreciate it. Thanks. So the Rogue, let's just jump right in with stats and progression. We're definitely going to have a lot to say about it in the What Do I Think section, so let's get there as quick as we can. The Rogue gets 8 hit points per level, plus Constitution modifier, of course. And their key ability is typically Dexterity, but that can change depending on your Rogue Racket, which is these sort of subclasses that they use, and we'll definitely talk about those once we get there. Rogues begin Expert in Perception, all the better to see you with, and then that will progress to Master at level 7 and Legend at level 13. Not a lot's going to escape a rogue, whether they're somebody to steal from or, a con mark or an assassin mark, whatever it is, rogues are going to find you. Saving throws, the rogue begins Trained in Fortitude and will progress to Expert at 9. They begin Expert in Reflex, that will go to Master at 7, and Legend at 13. 13 a big level for rogue, getting 2 legendary core statistics there. And their will saves begin at Expert, and that will progress to Master way late at 17. Skills. This is where the Rogue shines, and they're going to be trained in Stealth, of course, and 7 plus their Intelligence modifier additional skills. That's a lot. For attacks, rogues begin Trained in Simple, Unarmed, and what are considered the rogue package of weapons, which includes a rapier, a sap, a short bow, and a short sword. That will progress to Expert at level 5 and Master at level 13. For defenses, rogues are not the best. They begin Trained, and that will progress to Expert at level 13. And rogues are always trained with unarmored and light armor, but there is a way to get medium armor depending on your rogue racket. For class DC, rogues begin Trained. That will progress to Expert at level 11 and Master at level 19. So the first big thing we're going to talk about here in terms of progression is your racket, because that's going to change a lot about how your individual rogue plays. So there are 5 available rackets for the rogue. 3 were in the core rulebook, 2 more got added in the advanced player's guide. The core rulebook had the Ruffian, which is a very much melee focused, frontline, heavier rogue. It's your bruiser, the guy that might get sent, the guy or gal who might get sent to rough up a shop, the muscle, the enforcer type. They are going to get, their big focus is they're going to get some proficiency with medium armor to make them a little bit more frontline focused, and they're going to get a little more flexibility in the types of weapons they can use sneak attack with. So you can, sneak attack with clubs like a baseball bat. Again, very mob enforcer. If you choose Ruffian, then you actually get to choose to use Strength as your primary ability score that gets the boost instead of Dexterity, to really play into those larger weapons that you can get in that higher armor proficiency to reduce those penalties and things. It's a really fun build and really opens up the rogue in the types of versatile options that you have. You no longer have to just be sneaky or tricksy. You can be pretty tough on the front line. The Scoundrel is the Charisma option. You can choose, instead of Dexterity, you can choose Charisma. And it's very much your lie, cheat, steal your way through. Not so much steal, I suppose. It's more thief. But it's very much the fast-talking con man type of a rogue who, what they lack in combat ability, they make up for in the ability to avoid combat altogether. And so definitely a classical, fun option. The Thief, their primary claim to fame is Dexterity to Damage. This is something that we did a video on previously. where I was very much in favor of just giving everyone dexterity to damage. In the time since, I no longer think it's necessary. I think that it's, in fact, one of the... I think it makes the thief one of the least appealing of the rogue rackets, just because a little bit of extra damage is not going to show up a lot at later levels. I mean, depending on your feat choice, if you play into that rogue racket, it can be great. But especially if you're going to multi-class or something like that, I really feel that the thief is, with the dex to damage, is the weakest big boon for the racket, and certainly the least interesting. But with that said, it's certainly not bad, and it's very much a classical rogue, and, you know, dexterity, anything you can do to stack up the value on dexterity is good, because unlike previous editions, that value has been reduced a bit. So, you know, just, it's not the worst, it's not awful, it's just, in my opinion, it's the least fun of them, but it's definitely still good, and will still make a nice classic rogue. But again, the dex to damage, you're going to feel that a lot less as the levels increase, because the way Pathfinder's weapon specialization and critical specialization and the additional weapon dice from striking runes all mean that little boost from having your dexterity to damage, as you continue, by the time you get to about level 10 or so, that's really going to start to diminish in value and impact, but still fun. So the two new rackets that were added with the Advanced Player's Guide, the first one is the Eldritch Trickster, and that allows your rogue to pick up a spellcasting multi-class from first level, and it lowers the barrier, the level requirement for a rogue sneak attack with your spells feat, and is overall very interesting. The rogue already having so many options, which we'll get into as we go from their skills, means that adding some spells on top of that makes you a very, very vexing problem for your GM and the enemies they try to throw at you. You're almost always going to have some option up your sleeve, and that's what rogues do, right? With Eldritch Trickster, you're going to have the option to boost the key ability that is used for the spellcasting multiclass that you picked up. So, for example, if you pick up a sorcerer spellcasting multiclass, it's going to be charisma. If you pick up a druid spellcasting multiclass, that's going to be wisdom. If you pick up a wizard multiclass, that's going to be intelligence. So, you know, for example, a lot of rogue abilities are going to play well off of charisma, so that's usually probably going to be the most common pick. But, I mean, rogues can use any ability score to pretty good effect, so no wrong answer, really. Next up is the Mastermind from the APG, and it's very much, if you watched the investigator video that we did, you're going to get a good idea of what the Rogue Mastermind racket is doing. You're going to get access to a lot of the investigative feats that the investigator had, while maintaining a lot of your other rogue progressions. Realistically, an investigator and a mastermind rogue in the same party are probably going to look fairly similar, but the few differences primarily in the more combat-focused options within the rogue versus the sort of all-in approach to investigation with the investigator are going to be the key differences there. And that's not to say that they're not both interesting in their own right. Just keep in mind, if you're going to have a party with both of those, both an investigator and a mastermind racket rogue, there may be some overlap there. Mastermind always gives you the option to choose intelligence as your boosted ability score instead of dexterity. So, of course, your racket isn't just going to give you the base options, it's also going to open up feat choices that other rogues and other rackets won't have. So, you know, definitely look ahead, or, you know, sort of think ahead about what you're going to want. Even if the base version doesn't sound like exactly the right thing, you know, it could be that there's a pretty classic rogue concept that, or, you know, pretty exciting, I should say, rogue concept that you really want that you may not be able to get based on your racket choice. So, moving on from Racket, you're also going to get a skill feat at every single level, including first level. This allows the rogue to, again, cover a lot of bases, get the most out of all those skill points that they have, skill training that they have. It's also going to really allow them to, at higher levels, have some borderline magical options in terms of, some of those high-level skill feats are incredible and really fun, and the rogue is just going to have access to twice as many of them. So you can really do not sleep on those skill feats is the point that I'm trying to make here. There are some wild options, and they're a lot of fun. Rogues also begin with surprise attack. We've talked about previously how in Pathfinder you can use, you don't have to use your perception for your initiative. It's the standard, but you don't have to. If you use stealth as your initiative or deception, then any creature that you beat on initiative is considered flat-footed to you, regardless of what else is happening in the scene. So it's a great way to make sure that you get to use your next ability that we're going to talk about. Sneak attack. Classic, standard rogue stuff. If you've got any sort of advantage on your opponent, you're going to hit them a little bit harder. The gist of how that works is, as long as a target is flat-footed to you, you're going to get an additional number of d6 damage dice added in. Pathfinder Second Edition means those crit along with your weapon, everything doubles. So it can lead to some pretty explosive damage as you begin to get extra runes and extra debilitations and all sorts of fun things. So it's very strong. One thing that people may be noticing is the number of d6s you're adding is not nearly as many as it used to be. It's about half. Used to be you'd get about 10 on level up in previous editions. Now you're only getting 5. Do not be fooled into thinking that that's a huge nerf to the rogue. Suffice it to say, if the rogue had that by default, the full progression that you're used to, they would be dealing an insane amount of damage and would be the #1 damage output in the game by far. Maybe you think they should be. I promise you they are going to be doing just fine at this reduced sneak attack progression. Just to clarify, it begins with 1 d6. It will proceed to a second d6 at 5th, a third at 11th, and a 4th at 17th. Which is, a far cry from the 10 of previous editions, but again, I promise, going to be just fine. One of the things to consider with the rogue is, they can sneak attack multiple times per round, including the numerous ways they can make attacks not on their turn with reactions, and a number of other things that are just flat boosts to the rogue in Second Edition. They make really good use of the action economy, and that's why they have reduced sneak attack dice. Beginning at second level, you will get a skill increase like every class. Unlike every class except for the investigator, you will get one of these skill increases at every single level. So that means that you're going to have about twice as many trained skills, twice as many expert skills, and twice as many master and twice as many legendary skills as everyone else on the team. So you can become trained in a new skill. You can raise a trained skill up to expert. Beginning at level 7, you can raise an expert skill up to master, or any of the previous options. And then beginning at 15th level, you can raise any skill up to legendary. At level 3, the rogue will get deny advantage. This basically just prevents them from being flanked by lower level creatures. So keep in mind, just like with the barbarian, if you're fighting 2 creatures, one is higher level than you, one is lower level. The lower level cannot benefit from from flanking, but it can create flanking for the higher level. So it's still nice. It's still half as many creatures potentially that can benefit from flat-footed on you, but don't just think that means you can dive in between a bunch of bad guys and suffer no ill consequences. They've just got to all be weaker than you, lower level, which the way the encounters work in Pathfinder Second Edition should be happening fairly often. but it's one of those that's not going to benefit you when things have really hit the fan and you're against a powerful boss, unfortunately. Beginning at 9th level, you get Debilitating Strike. So whenever you get your sneak attack, you get to add a negative condition to the target. That can be a choice between, at level 9, that can be a choice between a 10-foot movement penalty or Enfeebled 1. Enfeebled 1 is a great condition wherein the target reduces any strength-based checks or numbers by 1. They are treated as if their strength is just 1 lower. So that's excellent. If you're fighting a powerful frontline enemy, you've just made them less likely to hit you, and deal less damage, which is, that's what you want. Beginning at level 15, you get Double Debilitation. So you can actually add 2 debilitations with your Debilitating Strike. That is fun, and with feats, there are a lot of debilitation options you can add beyond those first 2, so it can be pretty brutal. Finally, at 19, you're going to get Master Strike. It's an incapacitation effect. What that means, you can check out our spell video where we broke that down and explained that a little bit. But suffice it to say, any creature that is your level or higher will functionally get a +2 to these saves. But what it does is, when you strike a flat-footed opponent, as a free action, you can use Master Strike. And the target must roll a Fortitude save versus your class DC. On a critical success, they're unaffected. On a regular success, they are enfeebled 2. So even if they pass it, they're enfeebled 2. Till the end of your next turn. On a failure, they are paralyzed for 4 rounds, which is pretty nasty, right? On a critical failure, you get to choose if they are paralyzed for 4 rounds, if they are knocked unconscious for 2 hours, or if they're dead. And that's your choice. If they fail that save, critically fail that save rather, you get to pick which of those options you want for them. Regardless of the result of their save, they are invulnerable, are not susceptible to your Master Strike for 24 hours after that. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about feats and builds for your Pathfinder 2nd Edition Rogue. So there's something for everybody here. There are options for pickpocketing, special mobility enhancements, and just tricks in general. You can improve your spell casting or pick up some spell casting. You can goad enemies into making mistakes. There's a lot. Some of the highlights: gaining additional debilitations. Now you can only apply 1 until level 15, then you can apply 2, but just having a wide option of what those debilitations are can really give you tools for different types of enemies or different situations. Sometimes you may want to just melt HP fast on a target. If you don't think that you can finish the target before it does the thing you don't want it to do, then some of the other debilitations that can give them penalties might be better. So having those options is great and will only increase your threat level on the battlefield, pretty much whichever ones you choose. There is a little tree of feats for poisoning your weapons mid-fight. You can basically get these sort of freebie poisons at the beginning of each day when you do your preparations. And then in combat, you can apply them to your weapon for a little bit of extra damage. That damage does start small, but by the time you invest in a few of those feats, it can get pretty high and pretty nasty. So again, if your focus is on a damage dealer rogue, getting those extra damage debilitations and this poisoner feat, you will be dropping enemies fast. If you want to go a little more tricky, you can deny enemy reactions, which is huge, and can be very game changer clutch type moments. You can hit a foe just because your ally has hit them, which is really fun. It's a great reaction. Another fun thing you can do is, as part of your daily preparations, you can borrow a spell from an ally. So if you've got, somebody in the party who has, more spell slots than they typically know what to do with, or you just have a game plan that requires that somebody else be able to cast one of their spells in a secondary location, congratulations, that's something that you can do, and that's really fun. There are 2-weapon fighting improvements, similar to what to some of the options that a ranger gets. You get the a reaction where you can chase down a foe that's fleeing, sort of like just like the barbarians no escape. There are some options to really up your thrown weapons game and make that a real serious threat. There are also options for stealing in the middle of combat, both not just being better at, but being able to do it without sacrificing your action economy, which is huge. And then, as you get higher level, some pretty wild stuff can start happening. You get a lot of boosts while sneaking, up to and including the ability to functionally be in 2 places at once. And then, once the jig is up and you have to reveal and your true location gets revealed, you get to choose which one was the real location the whole time. So that's really, really interesting. You seem like you're over here, and then when it comes time to find out where you actually were, you have the choice between here or here, and you can't beat that. You're going to get some really great options for protection from various types of spells. Specifically, you can become functionally immune to any sort of attempts to detect you magically, which combined with your incredibly high stealth means that you are very much invisible. You pick up that foil senses stealth, and then suddenly you are functionally a ghost. And that's awesome. So, that's just a few of the options that you can look for when you're building your rogue. As you can see, there's seriously a lot, and a lot of varied ones. One of the things the rogue does really well is just a million different types of reactions. They not only get a lot of good reactions, but a lot of unique ones that apply in situations where other classes' reactions would not. And that's one of the class's biggest strengths, I think. I've said in other videos, having really good reaction options just means that your turn doesn't end when your turn ends, and you cannot bottle that kind of power. That's potentially very strong and very clutch. You're also, just going to have, in terms of the way that the skills progress and everything, just a million options and a lot of feats that really play well, class feats that really play well off of your skill feats. There's great synergy there. So, what do I think? This is the best the rogue has ever been, full stop. Any addition, any design goal that you have with your rogue, I would say that you will be very hard pressed. We're just here a little over a year into Pathfinder Second Edition, and with the add-on of APG, I don't believe there's much that you can't build with the rogue. In terms of, rogues that you've played in the past, it may not always look exactly the same, but in terms of design goals and what your rogue is doing round to round, in and out of combat, all the options are there, as far as I'm concerned. If there's something that you think's missing, definitely down there in the comments, let us know. If you've been surprised by how versatile this class is, just out of the gate, and then with the addition of the APG, definitely let us know that as well. Skill training and skill feats at double the rate just makes for incredible versatility. The way that those class feats play off of skill feats and vice versa means that you can really stack up on a single play style, or get the most out of pretty much everything, just cherry picking here and there and grabbing a lot of different options. It really does allow the rogue in Pathfinder Second Edition to rival, if not exceed, at most levels certainly, even spellcasters, in terms of the solutions to problems that they can provide the party. There are other versions of the game where a rogue is just really good, or just seems really lucky. But Pathfinder Second Edition, it just makes the rogue feel like they are a step above in terms of skill and options in whatever field you want them to be, and that's fun. Those reactions, I've said it before, but it really allows you to get the most out of not just your turn, but other players' turns. A good rogue, reflecting that legendary perception, is always paying attention and when you're at the table, having a lot of reactions will allow that to pay off for you. The Rackets lend themselves to wildly different character builds and concepts without feeling like you're locked in to any of them. None of them feel too exclusive from other abilities. Certainly there are feats that have the prerequisite for a certain racket, but for the most part, you're going to be able to do all the roguey things you want to do, whether you are a ruffian or an eldritch trickster or a scoundrel, thief, mastermind, whatever. I really do think that more than any other class, the rogue exemplifies best what Pathfinder Second Edition is doing right. And in my opinion, that's a lot of things. May not be your opinion, but if you want to see the difference between Pathfinder 1 and Pathfinder 2e, or 5th edition D&D and Pathfinder 2e, or any game, if you want to see what makes 2e 2e, look at a rogue and what they can do. They have a lot of hacks to the action economy, so by default they're going to get a lot out of that 3-action economy, and then, like I said, potential hacks to it can really spread those turns out and allow for a lot of variety, especially given the abilities that you're going to get from those skills. You're going to have options round to round, action to action, that other classes just don't have. You're also going to have reactions that other classes do not have, and reactions are such a big, unique part for me of Pathfinder Second Edition. So having that variety there is huge. The Rackets feel really different, and can even, with the Eldritch Trickster Racket, can even be a nice little introduction to how multiclassing works in general. So it's, sort of training wheels on that, because it's a baked-in multiclass functionally to the class. And then the fact that you're also potentially going to be able to be filling any role in the party because of those Rackets. And again, that's, for me, a big, huge thing with 2e, is the fact that so many classes can fill so many different roles. A cleric, not only does a cleric not have to feel like a healer, but anybody else in the party can take that healer role for them, or the whole party together can eliminate the need for a healer role by just all being pretty self-sufficient with enough extra to help people out. I mean, 2 or 3 people in the party having the medicine skill and a couple of skill feats on top of that, and there is no need for a dedicated healer having just... And the rogue is just, it exemplifies that. It really goes next level on all of these things that I love best about Pathfinder 2e. And it feels right as a rogue to be able to be maybe not the very best at anything, but being so very good at everything. So that's my recommendation. I love this class. I've loved it in previous editions. I think this is the best version we've ever seen. It's the class that I am most excited to play. If we hadn't already had a rogue and I just wanted to see all the different classes, then in the game where I could be a player, my barbarian orc would definitely have been some sort of rogue. Not that I don't love him, but I'm just really excited to get to play this class. So let me know how you're doing with your rogues down in the comments, and thanks so much for watching the video. We hope you learned something. We hope you're excited to play rogue, or at least give it a try. And welcome to the collective. See you next time. Bye.
Don't forget to